Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, continuing our coverage of the 2019 fantasy football season. I've already posted the rookie rankings. I've already posted the tiered running back rankings. This is all first look stuff here, because let's be real, folks. There's 3 months left till the actual start of football. Injuries to be had, preseason to be had. Some of the stuff is going to change, but this is what we're thinking about right now. Today, we are breaking down the quarterbacks into tiers for the season. We're going to be doing this under the standard 4-point per touchdown pass. All the rushing and receiving yards the same. I wouldn't be too concerned about the receiving yards, but 6 points for a rushing touchdown, 4 points for a passing touchdown. Those are the parameters that we're working under for the quarterback rankings. But before we get into it, and our guest today, I want to let everyone know, if you out there want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks, there are 3 ways to do that for this time around. One is smash the like button for this episode, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, and give me your ranking of the top 5 quarterbacks for this upcoming season. Way number 2, subscribe, rate, and review the audio Pat Mayo Experience podcast. Leave a 5-star review, your DraftKings handle. Something nice about the show. Could be about our guest today. Hey, I love that you have Jake Ciely on. That works out well for me. The other way to do it, follow me on Instagram at the PME. Then you just heart one of the QB posts that are up there, and then just leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. Boom. If you say something nice, probably give you a bit of an edge, but all you have to do is leave the DraftKings handle. Those are the 3 ways you can get into a draw for 20 DK dollars. And if you're looking for some of the videos, some of them are on YouTube. All of them are now posted on Facebook as well. So if you're ever missing out and you don't subscribe to the audio podcast, you can find it on my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme. Enough of that. Let's talk to Jake Ciely from theathletic.com. What's going on, my man?
Yeah, are they allowed to say I hate Jake Ciely, but I like his t-shirt? So like at least it's still positive? Because I think you'll get a lot more of the hate Jake Ciely's.
People love you, Jake, but do people really love your t-shirts all that much? I'm like out on novelty t-shirts. I'm not going to lie to you.
You don't like the Back to the Future Rick and Morty t-shirt? What the hell's wrong with you? It's like the best t-shirt ever.
Like, Jake, I hate to break it to you, but man, like, you know, I'm going to be like 40 soon, and I just can't wear novelty t-shirts anymore.
You can do whatever you want. Nobody knows. First of all, you don't look like you are. Second of all, it's the whole, hey, you're the age of your heart, or what? Wait, what's the saying? Whatever that is. You're only as old as you think you are. Whatever. Don't be an old man. You got a kid now. You can still be young.
That's what I'm saying. I got a wife. I got a kid. I got a mortgage. I'm getting old. Like, I just got to like hike up my pants, wear a belt, wear some cargo shorts, and be on my way. Maybe, I mean, I'm very against short sleeve dress shirts because I'm not Detective Sipowicz, but I know other people do that. Maybe that's a look I can get into. I think it's kind of trashy, but yeah, I'm getting old. What do I care anymore? My life is over.
Are there kids out on your lawn right now? I mean, you can go yell at them.
I mean, I live in the middle of a major metropolitan city. The fact that if I don't know how much you think I make a year, but to have a lawn, you're looking at like a $4 million house. I cannot afford that.
Really?
Yeah.
Good grief. Yeah, I mean, I knew it was expensive when I visited there. I didn't know it was that bad.
It's gotten pretty bad over the past few years. The property, I saw that property levels went from, and this is the property level podcast, by the way, if you're concerned about that, they've gone up 20% over last year. That's just basically boxing everyone out of the market. It's not great stuff.
Holy hell. Well, that explains all the like Kardashian looking women in that area too, then.
I guess so. I mean, the plastic surgery business is booming too. Maybe that's correlated. I don't know. Let's talk quarterbacks, though. I haven't broken these down into tiers yet or even rankings yet. I have like a preliminary look at like the order that I want to have them in. I need you to talk me in, talk me out of people. And I want to start with tier 1. Is Patrick Mahomes the number 1 quarterback coming into the season? And right now, we don't know what's going on with Tyreek Hill. Obviously, there's no Kareem Hunt on the team anymore, who was pretty valuable catching passes out of the backfield. Can he have the season he had last year? And what type of regression are we just looking at naturally? And how much will the impact of Tyreek Hill potentially not being around all season, 8 games, 10 games, whatever it might be, have on his overall stat line?
Dude, this is like you packed your bag way too full to fit on a plane. The question here, there's like so much to it. So the first part, let's talk about the Tyreek Hill part, because you and I already talked about it on the rookie show. In case anyone who hasn't watched that, they could. But if they don't want to, they drafted. Do you want to say his name?
Me, Cole, hard man. He's a caveman.
There you go. I thought you were going to go with the question mark one. Oh, yeah. I thought you liked that one better.
My Cole, hard man? That one?
whatever it may be. So we have to go down that road. And look, you said it. I mean, I said I would be surprised if he's not gone for the entire season. And then you said it's the NFL. Would you be surprised if it was 2 games? And honestly, no, I guess surprise wasn't the best answer. So let's look at that. But let's make the assumption that Tyreek Hill's at least will the cream hunt 10 games. That seems reasonable, if not for the full season. That's the first problem is we're going to take out Tyreek Hill, and then you're putting in Hardman and you're putting Demarcus Robinson, probably even splitting number 2 duties by who the true number 2 is. And you have to take that away. Like, you have to take away the fact that Tyreek Hill is one of the best route runners in addition to being an amazing downfield threat in the NFL. And all that being said, you have a drop off from there. So that's the first part. So now we're talking about Patrick Mahomes is in the discussion with Andrew Luck and Aaron Rodgers, and maybe if you want to throw in Deshaun Watson in that same mix, like they're all together in my opinion. Before that, when Tyreek Hill was healthy, I think he was on a tier by himself. To your second part of the question about the inherent already expected decrease in production. Like, we all saw the numbers. We've seen Mike Clay, your boy Hollywood Mike Clay from ESPN, tweet out the regression numbers of touchdown rates and offenses and blah, blah, blah. And even if you take the average regression, he still would have been by far the number 1 quarterback, because on a points per game basis, he was still 3 or 4 points ahead of everybody. And even the best seasons from Andrew Luck when he neared 50 touchdowns to Cam Newton's great season, all those seasons, he was still averaging almost 2 points a game more than those seasons. So you pull him back, he was still on a tier by himself. But now when you add in Tyreek Hill, I think he's in the first tier. Number 1 quarterback, yes. But if you want to argue for somebody else, I'm not going to tell you you're crazy.
So Patrick Mahomes outscored Matt Ryan, who was the number 2 overall scoring quarterback a season ago. Shockingly, Ben Roethlisberger was number 3, if people didn't know. Bit inconsistent week to week, but he's still putting up them points for everyone. But 70 more points than Matt Ryan, 4 more points per game than any other quarterback on the board. So if we put him, like you said, if this was, all things being equal, we knew this going into last season, he'd be number 1 by himself, and he'd be a high round draft pick, because this is all you're really looking for when you're making a pick, no matter what position it is. If you can get the one guy who's significantly better than everyone else, that's how you end up winning your leagues. That guy's sort of like a free space. So it doesn't matter if he's a quarterback, a tight end. Hell, if a kicker outscored all the other kickers by 80 points, you draft that guy in like the second round if you knew except for you. But if you knew what the outcome was going to be, and there was one guy at a position who was just way above everyone else, that's like that's like the game genie. You just put it in, you start beating every level, and you're good to go. So I like what you said with the other 3 guys on that list. You got Luck, you got Watson, Aaron Rodgers. Is there anyone else that you think should be in the discussion of tier 1 at quarterback?
Not for me. If you want to try to argue for Russell Wilson, I just think there's too many negatives with the loss of Doug Baldwin, with what we saw last year. With Russell Wilson has the ability to finish as a top 3, even number 2, possibly even number 1 quarterback. But I'm not going to put him in that tier, because that's his ceiling, and that's if everything goes right, including his being able to rush for 400 plus yards and 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns. So he could end up in that tier. There's no way on earth I'm putting them there in the draft. So these are the only 4. I think it's a clear 4, in my opinion, kind of similar to the running backs this year.
So with Andrew Luck, we just expect all things to be good from last year. He's going to throw at exactly the same rate that he was doing, average around 40 pass attempts per game, and he almost got to 40 touchdowns last year. The rushing yards weren't where we expected from Andrew Luck, but it's not like he was immobile. He still packed up almost like 150 rushing yards, no rushing touchdowns though. So maybe you can see something pop up like 1 or 2, and that does go a long way. Like when you look at where Dak Prescott finished at the end of the season, he averaged almost 18 fantasy points per game, and a lot of that, a ton of that, his elevated status in the quarterback rankings was all due to him just keeping the ball inside the 5-yard line. I don't know if the Colts have their run game figured out, but maybe they lean towards the run a little bit more if they expect to be a better team. Because we remember for the first half of the season, like the Colts were kind of ass. And then as the season progressed along, they got a lot better.
Yeah, and when you look at it, the Colts were still top 10 in pass percentage last year. And that was with T.Y. Hilton missing 2 games, no Jack Doyle for the most of the season, and then we have Eric Ebron, which played extremely well for Eric Ebron, but nobody was expecting that. Basically, he was their number 2 because they lost Deion Kane in the preseason. They had injuries. Nobody was stepping up. Like, they just really had nobody as a consistent number 2. So it was T.Y. Hilton for most of the season, not even the full season, and then Eric Ebron. So you're telling me that Andrew Luck throws for almost 40 touchdowns with that, still being top 10 percentage attempts in the league. Yes, Marlon Mack looks great, and we've heard the reports that, yes, they can see him as a bell cow, but I don't think this offense is going to change with the addition of Devin Funchess, with the draft ads that they made, with Deion Kane hopefully coming back healthy. There's just a lot here. Jack Doyle coming back healthy. There's a lot here where they're going to be, in my opinion, top 10 in pass percentage again. And if so, and you're giving Andrew Luck even one more weapon, if it's Jack Doyle, if it's Kane, if it's whoever, whatever it is, if it's Funchess, you give him one extra weapon and healthy T.Y. Hilton. And I don't see how his numbers haven't increased and go back to possibly that season where we were talking about 50 touchdowns.
So I guess what we have to think when it comes to Andrew Luck is the defense going to be good enough this year, or maybe the division has a bit of a downturn where they're playing from ahead in a lot of these games, and then all of a sudden they can effectively run the ball as much as they want, and they turn. And I don't want to say like this gets into like a Patriot situation where they just get up and they run the ball 55 times, but if we're going to count for regression for Patrick Mahomes because he had such an outrageous season, Andrew Luck had a fantastic season as well. Like, do you bake in any just natural regression to that? Because checking for close to 40 touchdowns is tough to replicate.
No, I think it's the other way. I think the defense hasn't improved enough. And then if you look at the rest of the division, you're afraid of a healthy Deshaun Watson and a healthy Will Fuller in that offense. You're afraid of the Titans hopefully getting something out of Marcus Mariota for one last season before they move on to their draft plans for next year. But they drafted A.J. Brown. They brought in Adam Humphries. So you look at this entire division, the Jaguars should be better. They've signed Nick Foles. All the offenses in this division are good. And if anything, you could argue all three of them could be better. And the Colts defense is okay. They address some spots in the offseason, but it's still a pass vulnerable defense. And it's still one that, look, I mean, we'll talk about like the Seer. Like, does anybody really expect the Seer to be that good of a corner again this year? So I don't know that the defense is that much better on a per game basis where they're going to be playing from leads and holding on to leads and trying to run out the clock. I don't think the Colts offense is going to see much of a change in snaps per game, attempts per game. I just think we're going to see very much the same. If anything, possibly the positive regression in efficiency because of the weapons, like I said, that he now has.
So what do we do with Deshaun Watson then? We expect a healthy Will Fuller to be ready for week one. Then we'll expect an unhealthy Will Fuller for halfway through game one. And then we got to figure it out from there. But he was sort of the hype guy 2 years ago, got hurt, blew out the ACL, came back last year and was still a very, very, very valuable fantasy quarterback. He averaged over 20 fantasy points per game. He was fourth in overall quarterback scoring. And even when you look at the rushing yards, the 5 rushing touchdowns are a lot because he called his own number inside the 10-yard line, even 5-yard line a lot. Do you expect even maybe more Lamar Miller, maybe more Donta Foreman? I don't really know how this shakes out, but it feels like he can improve on that 26 passing touchdown number and even improve on the yardage, especially if Fuller is healthy. And then you still have DeAndre Hopkins, but you get a healthy Kiki in the mix as well. And then all of a sudden, maybe you're cooking with gas. What's the likelihood that he finishes as the number 1 quarterback this year?
I would put it higher than Aaron Rodgers and probably neck and neck with Andrew Luck because I think it's going to be different than Andrew Luck. Like you said, the passing touchdowns could easily improve this year. If you look at it, you just mentioned no Will Fuller for a good part of the season, and I don't expect Will Fuller to play 16 games, but you still have a full season of QTB involved in this offense, which they liked, and they implemented that in last year's offense. You have Donta Foreman, who hopefully adds a little bit more balance with the passing game or running game to the passing game being a bigger threat. So you got a better balance there. And I don't think that's going to be a hurt side of it where all of a sudden now they're running the ball more and you have to work. No, Deshaun Watson didn't even pass a ton to begin with. So if he's playing 16 games, if Will Fuller is 10 games at least of the season and QD continues to be what he is, the problem is that's why I say like 20%, maybe a little bit behind Luck or right with Luck, is because there's a lot of ifs. It's Watson being healthy. It's Foreman. Foreman's actually the other side of it. If healthy, to your point, does he take away 2, maybe 3 of those touchdowns that Deshaun Watson had because he's such a beast and they can use him and protect Deshaun Watson, unlike the Panthers have been able to do with Cam Newton? So I think there's just a lot of ifs with Watson. He can definitively be the number 1 quarterback. He can finish ahead of Patrick Mahomes with Patrick Mahomes questions. But I just think there's a lot more question marks around Deshaun Watson, with a lot of them being health to him and the entire team.
The last name that you mentioned as a part of this tier was Aaron Rodgers, who was still top 10 in passing rate in the 2018 season. It does seem like maybe they're going to be better on offense, but are they really going to be better on offense? Because Aaron Rodgers spent most of the year like throwing the ball away. And maybe that injury that we saw him sustain week 1 against the Bears on Sunday night last year actually did linger throughout the entire season. The guy just tried to tough it out. No one likes to give Aaron Rodgers credit for being tough at any point, but it did seem like something was off a bit with him last year. And like, has the receiving core really gotten all that much better?
Well, I think you can argue that it is. I think you can argue that yes, there looked like there was something off. Whether it's complete health or Aaron Rodgers has started to take a step back, because some of it you can blame on him. Whether that's the question that we got to really know this year, and I think we're not going to know until we see him on the field, is because you watch those games and some of those passes and some of those the faults and deficiencies and everything you want to say is some of those were Aaron Rodgers. Like, they were Aaron Rodgers' complete fault. The question is that fault because he was playing through an injury? Maybe he couldn't throw off his leg as strong as he wanted to. Maybe he wasn't getting the zip that he wanted to. Maybe it hurt every time he threw. Whatever it might be, is there could be something behind his play, but his play was definitely part of the problem. In addition to, obviously, Randall Cobb being near what looks like the end of his career, despite him being younger than I realized. It just feels like he's been around forever. But I think that you look at Marquez Valdez-Scantling, you look at Geronimo Allison, assuming both are healthy, because that's the thing too, is even as wide receivers in and out the entire year from injuries from all of them, and go down to Equanimeous St. Brown, who I have no faith in play-wise, but he even got banged up. You go down the list and find somebody to stay healthy besides Devontae Adams. So I think if you look at health and assume that Valdez-Scantling and Geronimo Allison do play better this year, Aaron Rodgers is healthy. This was the number one pass percentage offense in the league, barely ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is surprising. And they were top 6 in 3 wide, even with all those issues last year, even with Jimmy Graham in the mix. So I look at it and say, we just need health for this team, which I know I just talked about Deshaun Watson as a question, but that's why Aaron Rodgers I would put 4th behind the other one, because you're also concerned that he doesn't have the rushing upside of Deshaun Watson, and he doesn't have the health now that Andrew Luck is further removed from his situation. So he's in this tier, but if you ask me to rank them in the 4th, I would have no problem arguing with the first 3, but every single time Aaron Rodgers would be 4th.
So do you think that Aaron Rodgers is closer to the top 3 guys or the next 6 guys on the list?
I'd say still closer to the top 6 guys, because if Aaron Rodgers is 100% and that was all that was wrong with last year, Aaron Rodgers still has the ability to finish as number 1 quarterback, even with Valdez-Scantling and Geronimo Allison as his 2 and 3.
All right, so let's talk about strategy a little bit as it pertains to drafting quarterbacks. Do you envision yourself ending up with any of these top 4 guys on any of your teams, or is the draft capital just too much to pay? Because when we go back and look at the past few seasons of who was the highest scoring quarterback, obviously Mahomes was a 10th, 8th, 10th, 9th, depending on what league you played in. You did start going inside the top 10 of some drafts at quarterback, but it's not like he was the 3rd guy off the board. So you're able to mine the number 1 quarterback from back in drafts. The year before, it was Russell Wilson who ended up as the number 1 fantasy quarterback, and he was going a lot later than a lot of people anticipated. Now, 3 years ago, it was Aaron Rodgers. That only really kicked in later in the year when he started throwing the ball 75 times a game, and he really leapfrogged Drew Brees, Andrew Luck, Kirk Cousins that year to end up as the number 1 guy. So do you see it being valuable to not necessarily waste, because people are going to do it, but what's the earliest round you think in a 12-team draft that you would draft a quarterback?
7th. I not that I'm 100% adherent to that, but I always like to have my 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and my flex. Sometimes that's going to involve a tight end, and so one of those might, if somebody's really starting to fall, if Kelsey makes it to the 2nd round, and it's late 2nd round for me. Again, we had that conversation before. We can have that conversation again when we get to tight ends, but I think it'll depend on my makeup. But I like to have 6 positional players before I draft my quarterback. That being said, it's not going to be 100% if I'm sitting there and Patrick Mahomes slips to the 5th round. At that point, if Tyreek Hill only gets a few games or somehow plays the entire season, all of a sudden, that's an amazing value. And for that, I might slip him on a few teams. It's not going to be a lot because I still don't like to do it because everything you talked about. I mean, look at Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's up and down every single year, the opposite years. Cam Newton, same thing. Is when Cam Newton's left to the end of drafts, which is why I have a lot of them this year, he's near the top. And then the next year he falls off. So I think that there's certainly value, especially in a 1 quarterback. Superflex is a whole different ball game, and that's why people should be playing that more to bring back value to the quarterback position. But if you're talking about the top 12, which we're going to get to, and there are going to be some names that you can make a case for being in the QB1, and then also look at the fact that how flat QB gets from basically QB 5 or 6 to QB 15. I mean, Matthew Stafford, not that anybody really wanted him. Matthew Stafford was QB 20 last year. So there's value to be had. I don't want Matthew Stafford as my quarterback. That was just a sidebar of the fact that If I'm in the 8th round, which actually just happened in a draft, and Deshaun Watson's still there because of who I'm drafting with, I'm taking him every single time. If Andrew Luck slips to the end of the 6th, I'll probably jump and say, you know what, this is a good spot to take him. So depending on who you're drafting with, now your average leagues, Andrew Luck and Deshaun Watson are going to be gone way before that. But if you have more experienced owners and they're there in the late 7th round, that's where I'll start thinking about, just because the value, you just said it. It's all about the value. If you're getting Andrew Luck that late, the value trumps anything that's left on the board, wide receiver, running back, or tight end wise.
So what do you think is, because not everyone plays in these industry leagues where quarterbacks just fall to the 7th round, good ones, mind you, and you can get value on them there. If you're playing in just your standard 10-team league with your buddies or 12-team league, whatever it might be, what round should you just cross off? I'm not taking a quarterback until X round in that sort of league, like the top 4 rounds, no matter who it is?
I would like to say that, but at the same time, well, I mean, it's easy to say that, I should say. And I would agree with that. The first 4 rounds, I don't want, it's so much lost value from what you get to the other positions for what's left on the board later in the drafts. But you also have to know who you're drafting with, because I don't want to give a blanket answer and say, what if your league is insane and drafts 7 quarterbacks before the end of the 5th round, and then you have owners that draft 2? Because a lot of your average home leagues are guys who draft, they'll draft Andrew Luck and then still draft, I don't know, like not Matt Ryan, because he might not even, but like a Jared Goff. It's like, the point being there is like, you're never benching Andrew Luck. Like, you're just going to start him every single week except for the bye. But there's a lot of owners that are inexperienced and do that. So if you're in one of those leagues and you're worried that some of the second quarterbacks are going to start getting taken, and then you might have to jump. So I'd like to say the first 4 rounds is a good number. I'd even lean towards saying the first 5, but you also have to know who you're drafting with. Basically, if I'm in a league and it's depending on where their quarterbacks are going, once the first 7 or 8 come off the board, then I'll start paying attention to what everybody's doing and start thinking about it, because I don't want to be left with, Phillip Rivers or Mitch Trubisky as my number 1 quarterback for the entire year.
I think that depends on where you end up getting them, to be perfectly honest with you. Because if you do play in a league where quarterbacks just start dropping in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, and there's like 5 or 6 of them off the board right away, I think that actually makes a case for you to wait even longer than possible, because you can just stack up your position players.
Right.
Well, these other dudes are just piling up piling up quarterbacks who are fine, but then you can actually start mining value in like the 13th round, 14th round, something like that.
Right. Well, and that's why I said 7 or 8, because I'm still not getting involved at that point. But, if all of a sudden 8 quarterbacks are off the board, now I'm going to start thinking about it, just because I'll get mine, and it's not going to, because everybody else in your league is already doing their thing. The value is not going to be that disparaging from what you're going to be drafting later if you continue to wait and wait and wait. And then if you're on a run and all of a sudden the second quarterback start going, and all of a sudden now you're looking at Josh Allen.
I mean, is that such a bad thing?
Yes. There's no way I want to start Josh Allen every single week.
Why? The guy's going to rush for like 300 yards a game.
Is he?
Yeah, probably. Why not?
I think that's, we'll talk about him when we get to him.
Okay, so the one name that I really want to throw into the mix here, because he's finished as the 2nd highest scoring quarterback 2 of the past 3 years. Then he had one just noticeable down year. Now, we predicted that he would end up being a lot better last season just because of natural regression. He overachieved one year, then he massively underachieved, that he came back up to where his level should be. But now dealing with another new offensive coordinator, and the big rep on Matt Ryan year after year is his first year with an offensive coordinator, not very good. The 2nd year, incredibly good. So should Matt Ryan be in the mix as the top of tier 2? Should he be outside of the top 10? I'm having a tough time really trying to figure out where to plant my flag on Matt Ryan this time around.
I have him as my 11th quarterback. So, but I have a giant tier 2. Like, I would put tier 2 everywhere from 5 down to basically 11. And so that's 6 guys now that we're talking about here, where you can make a case for any of them. 7 guys. And then if you look at it, it's not just that. It's up and down. I pulled it up because I remember it's been that way almost his entire career. If you go back to 2012, 19 a game, then 15, 17, 15, 21, 14, 21. It's every other year. And I'm not saying it's like the San Francisco Giants when they were winning a World Series on even years or whatever, but there's the concern of he's all over the map of consistency career-wise, and not all of those seasons, most of them were, though, all of those seasons were like about the offensive coordinator, so that's part of the consideration as well. But the real question is, forget it. Just pull his name away. Take Matt Ryan off the jersey and look at the player, and then tell me, is that player any different than the other 6 quarterbacks he's here with in the tier, for me at least?
All right, well, he was 5th in passing rate last season, at least in terms of attempts per game. If you think that the Atlanta defense is going to be any bit better, and they were decimated even like by the time the end of week 1 and the opening game came around, their defense was basically shot. So maybe now that it's healthy, maybe it's a little bit better. They don't have to pass as much. That's completely in play, but this division is full of high-scoring games, a lot of indoor games. That always goes to help fantasy performance. So who are the other guys on this tier? Because I'm looking at it right now. So I got like Ryan, Russell Wilson,
Yes.
Baker Mayfield, Cam Newton, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Phillip Rivers. Like, which guys should I take into tier 2 and which guys should I take out of tier 2?
All right, so I'll give you my second tier. And so you mentioned a lot of them. It's Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan's in here, Drew Brees, Baker Mayfield. He was actually near the top. Those are all the guys. And then the one I have here, which I know is probably going to get a lot of pushback. So there's your 6. I named 6, right? None of the other ones you mentioned, though they're all in the next tier for me, which wouldn't surprise if any of them finish in this tier, but we'll talk about them. But they're not in this tier. Carson Wentz deserves to be in this tier for me on his ability. It's a huge question mark about his talent, or not about his talent. I just said that. His injury. I mean, but we're seeing positive signs. You don't have to draft him early as of today. You don't even have to draft him early, probably still from a month from now. But, you see him out there playing as long as everything is on track and playing. People forget that Carson Wentz, in his ability, even without the return of Deshaun Jackson. And yes, Deshaun Jackson, not the same Deshaun Jackson for 5 or 6 years ago, but this offense is still one led by an exceptionally talented quarterback, that being Carson Wentz, who has and put up top 3 quarterback numbers when healthy before, with a completely different mix of wide receivers. So I think Carson Wentz deserves to be in the second tier. Obviously, if a month from now he's still slow to recover, he doesn't deserve to be there.
I'm probably going to keep him in tier 3 for now because I am a little bit worried about that injury. But what about like Big Ben?
Did I not say Ben Roethlisberger? He's in this tier for me.
Oh, did you? Okay, sorry. So I had Baker, Wilson, Ryan, Brees, Newton, Winston, Kyler Murray, and Ben Roethlisberger as a part of this tier for me.
See, I actually have Kyler Murray starting the next tier. I don't mind that you even have him here, and I thought I was one of the highest people on him, and it's purely for the rushing upside. There's just a lot of question marks with it. Like, you're talking about a rookie quarterback with a second-year wide receiver who missed the majority of last year in Christian Kirk. You have rookie wide receivers that are assuming to be at least the number 3, if not possibly even further up the depth chart. Larry Fitzgerald has tailed off a lot, and maybe part of it was Josh Rosen in the play from last year. But the biggest thing you go back to is the offensive line, as much as they addressed it, is still one of the worst offensive lines in the league, which means Kyler Murray's going to run, which is what we like for fantasy. We love that for fantasy. Like, I think 600 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns is well within the realm of possibilities. But what are we talking passing-wise? Are we talking 3,800 yards and 20 touchdowns? I mean, if he finished with a Mariota 3,500 yards and 17 touchdowns and 16 interceptions, that wouldn't surprise me. I think he's better than that, but I think that's where he doesn't quite make this tier for me.
So I think I'm going to have him at the very bottom of this tier, but I'm enamored with this upside. I feel like it goes one or two ways. You spell out all the negatives, you spell out all the positives. I think if we get an air raid system where he's dropping back to pass, and whether he has the run option or the pass option, that you get the ball in his hands, either throwing it or running it like 40 to 50 times a game, then all of a sudden you're looking at a situation where you can just capitalize on so much upside. It can be an absolute disaster, but depending on the league that you're in, I don't think that you're going to have to spend that much draft capital on him. Like, when I'm trying to figure it out, like, I feel like he's going to come in quarterback 9, 10, or 11 for me. And I guess the big thing is, would I want to have Kyler Murray or would I want to have Josh Allen?
I'm taking Kyler Murray every time. So there you go.
How come? But what's your case against Josh Allen, who's awesome?
Josh Allen comes down to the passing again. And look, the rushing should be actually somewhat similar. I still think there's more. Okay, so it's 2. There's more rushing upside with Kyler Murray. There's no question that he has the potential to be Robert Griffin-like, where Robert Griffin ran for 800 yards. I mean, and now if he runs for 800 yards, you're talking about top 5. So you talk about the rushing, which could push Kyler Murray into the top 5 of quarterbacks, even if he has a mediocre passing season, which Robert Griffin did. So you look at that side of it. But Josh Allen's accuracy, I don't care that they added John Brown. I don't care like you go down the list and brought in Cole Beasley, who got banged up already in the offseason. But they duplicated who they had in Robert Foster and Zay Jones, with basically the exact same wide receivers, just veteran versions of those. It's just Josh Allen. I told you this last year before and after the NFL draft, when I said, people talk about throwing too tight windows with quarterbacks. That's like a cliche thing people said. And I jokingly said, Josh Allen can actually hit the pinhole, actually the peephole of a door. He just can't hit the damn door. And you saw that last year. I don't think Josh Allen is going to all of a sudden fix his accuracy issues. So my problem is where they have rushing ability, both of them. Kyler Murray, I think, has a much higher floor in the passing game because I trust Kyler Murray as a quarterback a lot more than I trust Josh Allen.
What do we make of Josh Allen's rushing stats? So 8 rushing touchdowns, close to almost 700 yards, and what was essentially not a full season for him. They were still, Nate the Great was still playing some games last season. So like, what's a rushing, like, if he actually does improve as a passer, and from year 1 to year 2, he should improve as a passer just a little bit with NFL coaching. Who knows?
Should.
But does that mean that completely takes away from his rushing game? Because if he's not rushing for what he did last year, he's nowhere in this conversation.
No, I don't. Like the 8 touchdowns was a lot to begin with. Period. That's downright period. And then you look at this backfield, and I think that you say, LaShawn McCoy, whatever. Like they brought in Frank Gore, they bring in TJ Yeldon, they drafted Singletary. So you look at all of this backfield and you say, they're not going to ask Josh Allen to do as much in the rushing game. And also with what you said, you're assuming that Josh Allen is going to see at least an improvement in his second season. So if you say he still rushes for 600 yards over 16 games, I'd say that seems reasonable. The rushing touchdowns probably decrease. And then on the flip side of it is what we're all not including here is it's the interceptions. The truth is it's like Eli Manning type of interceptions. So he has more upside than Eli Manning because of the rushing and because at this point in their careers, I would actually say he might be a better, I don't know. The passing is debatable between the two. But when you're talking about somebody over 16 games who probably is going to near, if not eclipse, 20 interceptions. I mean, like, what do you have last year? 11 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, or somewhere in that range. So you're talking 18 reasonable. Like, he's got the Phillip Rivers is a good one. Like, he throws a 10 interceptions too, but Phillip Rivers is throwing for 35 touchdowns. I don't see that. And that's the downside to Josh Allen, where you can get 1 week where he throws 180 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Sure, he ran for 40 yards and maybe even a score. But if it's one of those weeks and all that happens and he doesn't run, that's what I'm talking about. It's just there's going to be weeks where Josh Allen could legitimately kill your fantasy team. It
just seems to me that I'm not too concerned about the interceptions because it does feel like if he throws the interceptions and the Bills get down, that's only going to translate to either more bombs or more running for him.
You're just making the Blake Bortles argument. Blake Bortles had killed your fantasy team, who also Blake Bortles used to run.
Yeah, but Blake Bortles never ran like this.
He came close. Go back and look.
Maybe his overall 16-game season total rivaled something that Josh Allen put up. But what Josh Allen put up last year was in like 10 games.
Okay, no, okay, over the 10 the per game sample, yes, but again, Blake Bortles he created his own passing game, but at the same time, you still saw the downside of Blake Bortles. Again, I just don't want a quarterback potentially getting negative fantasy points for my team, and Josh Allen, Blake Bortles, all those quarterbacks, that's a legitimate possibility.
I guess so. I'm not too concerned. I just think that the rushing is so stable with Josh Allen, at least on a per game basis, that he can pull you out of that hole if need be. And he's the type of player, like we talk about Kyler Murray this way. We saw the Mitch Trubisky games last season. Any quarterback that is mobile with his legs has the ability to win a week for you as well. Now, yes, the possibility for them to lose the week for you, but that's why, I mean, you're not drafting
well,
Josh
then let
Allen.
me turn it around to you.
But you're not drafting Josh Allen in the 5th round. You're drafting him in the last round.
You're getting him for free, but so as of right now, to your point, the whole point with the question was Kyler Murray versus Josh Allen, and I don't even think it's close. But you're also getting Kyler Murray at that same point. So, Josh Allen's not being drafted. Kyler Murray right now, from the drafts I've been in, is one of the last round picks. I actually took him as my Cam Newton backup in the very last round after a defense. So, to your point, I want to turn one thing back and ask you for the Josh Allen, because you're talking about the rushing upside. There were a couple games where he only had 15, 20 yards or whatever. He fortunately got the rushing touchdown. So my question is, like you said, is like, if you think the touchdowns are going to come back, now that 15, 20 rushing yard game doesn't help you as much as it did, because without the touchdown, that 1.5, 2 points is not going to help you that much.
No, it's not. And that's something that you have to bank on. But it's not like, I mean, by going out and signing Frank Gore, I don't really think that the Bills address the running back situation. That's why I think that maybe you see a decrease in the actual yardage and the overall attempts per game, but he can still have those long runs. And you can maybe bank a little bit that he does improve as a passer. If that's the case, then you're looking at a situation where you're going to have long touchdown passes because of just the style of player that he is. Based on his rushing ability, he's able to create space for himself in the backfield and extend plays that I do think that there's upside to be had with Josh Allen as a fantasy asset. I don't know how good real life that he's going to be. But I mean,
No, that's
I guess what I kind of got confused is where I've been seeing Kyler Murray is that he kind of keeps creeping up and up and up and up in draft boards and people's rankings. And Josh Allen's just stagnant. Like, people aren't drafting him.
All right. Well, two things. One is they also brought, not that I think even TJ Yeldon makes the roster, but they brought him in. And I go back to Devin Singletary. I think we talked about this in the rookie show, is that what's owed to LaShawn McCoy. It wouldn't surprise me if two of the three between McCoy, Frank Gore, and TJ Yeldon don't make this team. And all of a sudden Singletary walks into an impressive value as a rookie and even leads this backfield. All that being said is Gore, Yeldon, Singletary. I think they even either had or signed Sonoris Perry. But point being, they're addressing this backfield. They are going to try to run a little bit more this year. But on the flip side, so I'm gonna ask you a question again. At what point are you now saying it's too much for you, Kyler Murray? Like, if Kyler Murray gets up to the 10th round, are you gonna be like, no, that's too much now?
I think the 10th round is about right for Kyler Murray, actually. I think based on the upside that we've talked about, and even with this Josh Allen stuff, like, I wouldn't have a problem drafting Josh Allen like the 12th, 13th round.
See, what I was going to say is, like, I'd still, if you told me I could have Kyler Murray in the 10th or Josh Allen in the last round, I'd still take Kyler Murray in the 10th. We're different on this. I just legitimately believe in Kyler Murray as a quarterback. I believe his passing game is better. I believe his running game is going to be better. And at worst case scenario, the floor, I think, is better. And that's why, look, I have Kyler Murray as 12. I'm not that. I have Josh Allen neck and neck with Tom Brady at 17 and 18. So it's not like I hate Josh Allen. I just love Kyler Murray.
I'm going to have Kyler Murray ahead of Josh Allen as well. I just think that they're very comparable in this sense. It's not like we're throwing Lamar Jackson into this mix, because I just don't think he has the passing ability. I mean, I don't want to say that he can't throw the ball. It just seems like he's going to be limited in what his upside in the passing game is going to be, at least with Murray and with Allen. They're going to give them opportunities to try to throw the ball downfield, and it's up to them to convert. It just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case for Lamar Jackson.
Do we have to? Are we going to Lamar Jackson now? Are we talking about him now?
Well, let's just throw all the running quarterbacks in, like the young running quarterbacks. Let's throw Trubisky in. I could see Josh Allen having like a better fantasy season and at least a more consistent rushing one than what Trubisky had last year. And if that's the case, he's like a top 15, potentially top 12 type running or quarterback with those weeks where he's like the best quarterback by far.
Well, I don't think people realized how good Trubisky was for a stretch last year. So I actually think that Trubisky, even with a not the running of Josh Allen or Kyler Murray, if you told me that Trubisky plays 16 games with Allen Robinson, and that's an enormous question mark for 16 games, and he finishes a top 10 quarterback, I would not question it one bit. I think Trubisky does have that upside. Again, but these are now quarterbacks, to go back to the earlier point of when I'm taking a quarterback, when I want to consider it, depending on who I'm drafting with. I don't want to say Trubisky is my number one. I'd rather, I think there is value in drafting two quarterbacks for if you don't draft somebody you're starting every single week. Like, you can even go down to Ben Roethlisberger. If you draft Ben Roethlisberger, you're starting him every single week. Don't try to play the matchups and play this road game that used to be true for 3 straight years and all that type of stuff. You just play Ben Roethlisberger every single week, because if you miss out on his 400-yard and 5-touchdown game, you're going to be kicking yourself. When you get into the range of Matt Ryan, even this year, Jared Goff, Jameis Winston, now Kyler Murray, like all these type of guys, this is where you draft two quarterbacks, because maybe one of them turns into that I start him every single week quarterback. All that being said is Trubisky is in that same conversation. I don't want Trubisky and 0 other quarterbacks with him on my roster. I'm drafting another person in this range. I think he has top 10 potential, though. But to go to Lamar Jackson, I actually think people are crazy right now. I have no problem. I would put money on it just to throw out the bet, if there's Vegas odds on it, that Lamar Jackson has a better, if there was like something out there that said he has a better fantasy season than Kyler Murray, I'd put money on it just to put some money on it, because I know the odds are going to be ridiculous, because everybody already wrote the book that Lamar Jackson can't pass and the story is over. Done. Nothing. Look, he's a struggling passer. We know that. We know that he came out of college struggling as a passer and needs to improve. They also walked into an offense last year where they didn't change the passing game for him. They just let him run more. They basically started running an option offense for him because they didn't want to change the playbook in the middle of the season. Again, they changed the play style, not the playbook. They also had 0 wide receivers of quality. I mean, Willie Snead, like look at that roster last year. They went out, they drafted Marquise Brown, they drafted Miles Boykin, who was supremely underrated. They addressed this wide receiver attack. They have Mark Andrews, go down the list, Hayden Hurst, like all these tight ends. They have weapons now that Lamar Jackson should be a better passer this year. Lamar Jackson has the talent innate of himself to be a better passer this year. It's just ticking me off, as you can tell, the people that have already decided that Lamar Jackson, similar to Jared Goff after his rookie season, was toast and done. Like they just think like that's it. Lamar Jackson's only a running quarterback. He can't pass.
So should a tier just involve, like, is Kyler Murray so far ahead of these guys that he should be a part of tier 2, and the Trubisky's, the Allens, the Lamar Jacksons should almost just be on a tier by themselves? Would you throw someone like Dak Prescott onto that list? Because Dak Prescott's not like a big rushing quarterback. He just rushes in touchdowns.
He does, and he rushes from some yards, but no, they see, like, that's why I wouldn't put, you had Kyler Murray in that next tier. I have Kyler Murray in the 3rd tier. Like, I have Kyler Murray with Goff, Winston, Rivers, Trubisky, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, and Tom freaking Brady.
I don't know if I want to touch Tom Brady this year, to be perfectly honest with you. I just don't see where any of the upside rests with him. He might be a nice floor quarterback, but if the Patriots are going to be successful again this year, it just seems like they're going to run the ball an awful lot.
And they ran an awful lot last year, but again, it's Tom Brady. I mean, do we really want to write him completely off? But what did I tell you at the top of this? This is the range of quarterbacks where I'm not drafting one and saying this is it. If I'm drafting in this tier, I'm drafting 2 in this tier.
So Tom Brady last year finished with 17.5 points per game. That was 14th amongst all quarterbacks. And actually, if I sort by average, let's go to this again. That was even worse than that. That was 16th amongst quarterbacks in fantasy points per game. Like, and
QB too.
Do you really? Yeah, but would you even want to draft him as your back? Like, if you drafted someone else in that range, would you even want Brady as your backup, or would you roll the dice on I don't know, like a Josh Allen in that range? Because I would. I'd rather have Kirk Cousins, and maybe this is just year 2 is just so much better that I just don't see where it really improves for Tom Brady. Like 29 touchdowns, that seems to be in the range that he's at. He's not going to throw the ball close to 650, 700 times. That I don't get why you would draft him.
The only reason, and this is nothing like there's no analytical data here, is the only reason is because it's the Belichick Brady FU factor. Like, I mean, honestly, this is the team that wouldn't surprise me if they were like, yeah, we ran a ton last year, and that's a good way they showed us we could win last season too. But yeah, FU, we still have plenty left from Tom Brady. Watch me come out and throw 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns. Like, they just, like, if there's a scenario, like, you know what? I'll even say this. Throw that out, like, just as a sidebar, is Tom Brady, was it not last season, but the season before, or the one right before that, where he started off like gangbusters? And so if you look at Tom Brady and just say, hey, if he comes out 2 games in a row, 5 touchdowns, 500 yards, people are going to go bananas because it's Tom Brady. And then you got a trade chip.
Yeah, people are pretty.
I don't ever draft a trade.
People are so reluctant to trade for quarterbacks anyway.
Well, then I'll just keep Tom Brady, and maybe he has a resurgence season at the end of his career. Like, it's just, I don't want to write off Tom Brady. I'm just not ready to just say he's done.
I'm not saying that he's done by any means. I'm just saying that, like, it's almost the exact inverse of the Josh Allen situation, of where I don't think that Josh Allen needs to be a good real life quarterback to be a good fantasy asset. I don't think that Tom Brady necessarily means if he's a bad fantasy asset that he's a bad real life player. He can be a fine real life player. I just don't see where the upside factors in for him at quarterback in terms of fantasy.
If the upside is, what do you want for your team? Because
I want as many points as possible. I'm just not getting that with Tom Brady.
But here's the thing is, do you want Tom Brady 17 points every single week? 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, and, you know, maybe like 12 and then a 20 mixed in there? Or do you want a 0, a 25, a 4, a 22? Like,
I would, for where you have to draft these guys, like in the 13th,
Brady's going
14th.
undrafted.
All right, so undrafted. So towards the end of the draft, if that's the case, then give me the quarterback who has the huge range of outcomes of 30 to -2, because the rest of my team should be pretty good by that point.
No, but I'm talking about owning them from week to week. I don't want. I
get that you. Okay. Let's say Lamar Jackson. I'd rather have Lamar Jackson.
Okay, then I'll take Lamar Jackson.
Okay, so but it doesn't matter. Like, if you have these huge range of outcomes guys and you get them in like the last round, They're the last piece of your team that you're putting into your starting lineup. Your starters should be pretty consistent at receiver, at tight end, at running back, that if the quarterback goes off, you definitely win the week. But if he doesn't go off and he has a bad week, your team still should be good enough to overcome that. Like, I don't even think just penciling in Tom Brady for 17 points a week is doable. Maybe it's 14 points a week. And if that's the case, he's Matt Stafford. And like, even looking at Matt Stafford's numbers from last year, they're not very good. Like, I don't want the 20th highest scoring quarterback, and especially one with no upside. Give me the guy that can swing a week for me.
Matt Stafford didn't even average 14 points a game last year. Tom Brady was 17 and a half. Yeah, that's a big difference.
And I mean, Gronk had a down year, but at least he still had Gronk.
I don't even think that was Gronk. That wasn't. He's also got N'Keal Harry this year.
All right. I mean, I'd rather have I'd rather have Jameis. I'd rather have Dak. I'd rather have Rivers. I'd rather have
I named
Cousins.
all those guys.
I'd rather have Mayfield. I'd rather have Jimmy Garoppolo. I'd rather have see here.
Mayfield's on a million other that's the second tier.
Okay, well let's swing back to the second tier because we completely kind of glossed over that just a little bit. I'm gonna make that note right now that we glossed over the second tier, moved straight to tier 3, and now we're rounding back into tier 2. If people want to check the time codes for this stuff. Because I have Mayfield as my quarterback number 5.
So do I.
Okay, so we're on the same page with that. He's just good.
Yeah, he's amazing. Like, worst case scenario, 3-13 is huge disappointment. At least it's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think that he just posts fantasy points. Like, he doesn't need to be good to post fantasy points with that team around him.
No, didn't you see Odell Beckham already taking pop shots at Eli Manning?
It's a very low bar if you're going to start doing that.
No, he said he's got to adjust to the speed of the pass. It's interesting to have to deal with how the pass coming in as hard as they are.
So Mayfield, then who's next at 6? Ryan?
No, I have Russell Wilson at 6.
I worry that Russell Wilson severely overachieved with the amount of touchdown passes that he threw per attempt last year. Maybe he's just that damn good, but it's hard to see that replicating. It reminds me of that Mariota situation.
He also had 0 rushing touchdowns. That's not normal.
Yeah, but they're not. He's not running like he used to.
He still had almost, what do you have, like 400 rushing yards last year?
He had 370. He only rushed the ball 67 times. Like, if you told me it was over 100, I could get on board with that. But I think at this point of his career,
hold on.
35 passing touchdowns in an offense that exclusively runs, like, that could drop back to 25 real quick.
I just pulled it up. Look, 67 rushes for 376. Trubisky 68 for 421 and 3 touchdowns. Dak Prescott 75, which is only 8 more rushes for 305 yards, 70 less yards, and 6 touchdowns. All I'm saying is, look, I'm not saying he's running like crazy, but if 375, 400 rushing yards should be at least 2, if not 3 rushing touchdowns. And I know that doesn't sound like a big gap, but I mean, you're talking about Russell Wilson last year was number 9 quarterback. You added in 12 fantasy points. Now he's number 6. You added 18. Now he's number 5.
3 rushing attempts inside the 5-yard line last year for Russell Wilson. I just don't think that this offense is geared to want to give him the ball when they get in close, where some of these other offenses are, or they run the ball so often that there's not even the ability to drop back, scramble, and then rush in, like we saw with Trubisky and Dak Prescott. Like, they had designed runs for these guys for one thing near the goal line, but even if a play broke down, then they were able to run it in themselves. It just seems like with the Seahawks that they're going to turn around and hand the ball off.
Nah, look, I don't think it'll be as bad as last year. They obviously led the league in it. And, they still have Carson. They have Rashad Penny that they hope to get more out of. But they drafted DK Metcalf. They drafted Gary Jennings. Jerron Brown's been talked up, which, again, it's just coach speak time. So everybody's getting talked up. Everybody's in the best shape of their life. Point being, this team knows it needs to pass more. They no Doug Baldwin for a lot of last year. They're trying to fill in holes and trying to make people into things that they weren't. Like, this is another team similar to Ravens. They addressed their deficiency, which is the passing game, weapon-wise. They added weapons. I'm not saying this is all going to suddenly turn into a top 10 passing offense or even percentage-wise, but I would not expect them to be the most run-heavy offense again this year. And if you're talking about, here's a little interesting part of it, throw out Jerron Brown, DK Metcalf, Gary Jennings, 2 of them being rookies, 1 of them being Jerron Brown. If you're talking about in the red zone, and to your point about having to scramble, you're talking about 2 rookies in Jerron Brown. There are probably going to be opportunities where their plays are breaking down or they're not getting as open as they should because of the inexperience. And Russell Wilson does have to run, not just on a counterpoint there.
I see Josh McCown with double the amount of rushes inside the 10-yard line. He played like 2 games than Russell Wilson. Like, I just find it very hard to believe that it's going to swing back the other way. And I would bet pretty heavily that they're going to be in the bottom third of the league in run to pass ratio this year as a team.
Who else was in the bottom third?
I have no idea.
I
assume the Bills.
No, you said third. I was thinking 3.
No, yeah, the bottom third.
Bottom third. But I don't. But even so, with how run heavy they were last year, it's still like it was so ridiculously run heavy last year that even if they still are in the bottom third and they only move up 5 spots, it's going to be an enormous increase for that team.
Sure, but the 35 touchdowns really should not have been 35 touchdowns for Russell Wilson based on the amount of passes that he dropped back and threw and the amount of yardage that he had. Like, that could have easily been 25. And like we talk about like Mahomes' regression, he might regress from like 50 to 38, something like that. I could see Wilson, if all things being equal, even if they pass a little bit more, that he still throws fewer touchdowns this year.
And what happened the year before? He threw 34 on how many more attempts? How many more attempts was it? Do you know in 2007?
I don't. I
I
will look as a team or for him.
No. It's just I didn't know if like maybe you had that down because you were bringing it up, which I'm assuming was a way worse rate. But I just know that Russell Wilson has been pretty dang on efficient for the majority of his career.
It's been consistent with him. Like Aaron Rodgers is another one where it's been very consistent with him year after year. It feels like this offense does him no favors, is the entire thing, that he overachieved based on this offense last year.
Okay, that's fair. I actually pulled it up. So it was 34 on 339, and then it was 34 on 329 in 2015. The down year was 2016. It was 353 and only 21 touchdowns.
So attempts last year, he had 427 attempts, and he had 553 the year before, 546 the year before that.
Right. And then, but the 483, which is still 60 more attempts on 34 touchdowns in 2015. Again, you're not wrong in the fact of the efficiency similar to Patrick Mahomes. I just see a much like 3,400 yards. So first of all, if he gets close to 4,000, you've offset a couple touchdowns. If he runs in 2 or 3, you've offset that completely. And now you're right back to where Russell Wilson was last year as number 6. Look, if you don't want him here, I'm not drafting him. I don't own him on any of my teams because I just talked about how flat this tier is. Like you talk about 5 through 11. If you want Russell Wilson and you think Russell Wilson deserves to go in round 6, go right ahead. I'm not doing it. If he's in round 8, not going to do it because as soon as we get to Baker Mayfield, I'm waiting until, well, for me, I'll just tell you mine goes as of today. I haven't done my projections yet. Baker, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Drew Brees, Roethlisberger, Wentz, Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray. If we get to Drew Brees is off the board, so now it's Roethlisberger, Wentz, Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray, now I'm going to consider about taking my quarterback. So wherever they go, if Russell Wilson falls to that spot, great for me because I like Russell Wilson. If he doesn't and he's gone, that's fine as well because, again, this tier is just so – there's going to be you could have 2 passing touchdowns probably be the difference between like number 6 and 12. I
feel like that's almost the case even when we get from like number 8 to number 22 at some points as well. That's why.
Oh, that's even flatter.
That's when we had the discussion about when to draft a quarterback. That's why you can wait on a quarterback because the difference usually isn't so much. Even to look at it last year, like quarterbacks, let's see, 4 through.
No, there's actually a huge drop off from Rivers to Trubisky from 14 to 15 last year.
Is that what it was?
From Trubisky to Mayfield. But again, now we're talking about games played as well.
Yeah, I'm just talking about per game. So let's
per game.
Let's start at Cam Newton, 20 fantasy points per game. So you have Cam, Rodgers, Goff, Trubisky, Wilson, Dak, Rivers, Jameis, Cousins, Brady, Wentz, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Matt Barkley. All those guys were within 3 points per game of each other.
I have even more than that.
I mean,
did you say Matt Barkley?
I did say Matt Barkley, yes.
For his one game.
He was great. He had 17 points. But like that doesn't include Mahomes, Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Watson, Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan, Andrew Luck, Drew Brees. All those guys are ahead of them. And Brees is pretty close to Cam Newton. He averaged 0.1 more per game. Luck averaged 0.2 per game more. So if you wanted to start at Luck and go through that entire tier, the per game numbers are there.
Well, I mean, even to your point, there's a less than 2 point gap between Cam at 8 and Matt Ryan at number 2. Less than 2 points.
Yeah, but now we're talking about like 22 points per
I'm
game.
sorry,
down to
fewer than 2 points.
There we are.
For those grammatic people out there.
So I mean, now that I think about Baker, Baker's kind of seems like he's on an island by himself as a part of this tier 2. Like, should it go Mahomes, Luck, Watson, and then Rodgers and Mayfield as the tier 2, and then the tier 3 is super flat?
No, I would say what you just said first. I think that's really good. Baker by himself on a tier.
I think I might do that. I'll have Baker at 5. He's kind of by himself. Then it translates into everyone else. And you have Wilson here. I can make the case for Ryan, but I am worried about like a first-time offensive coordinator. Do you have Jameis Winston as a part of this tier?
No, Jameis Winston's in the next tier.
Jameis Winston with Bruce Arians and no running back, and no defense, that just sounds like a lot of pass attempts.
Bruce Arians gets angry too. So Bruce Arians might see a 4 interception game like, screw you. But yeah, I mean,
now there's no Fitzpatrick to go to.
Yeah, but I'm just, wouldn't surprise me. All I'm saying is like, but look, this team knows it needs to run more. They've been like Jameis Winston, although I feel like he's talked up the entire 53-man roster. Well, there's more people on that team right now, but he's talking up everybody. And they're talking about, look, they do need to run the ball more this year. And as much as I am one of, and there's a plenty of people out there, and the bandwagon is filled up a hell of a lot in the past year plus. But you know, from show we did last year, I'm a huge Chris Godwin guy. And Chris Godwin was a top 25 wide receiver, splitting time with Deshaun Jackson. But Deshaun Jackson's gone. Adam Humphries is gone. I know there's people out there that like Wilson. I know there's other people out there that like this team and say like, but we're down to now Mike Evans, Godwin, OJ Howard. And if they're still trying to get much out of Cameron Brate, they're going to be a little bit more run focused this year. Not a ton. This is kind of like similar to the Seahawks on the other side of things, whereas maybe they decrease 5%, but that's a big difference for this style of offense. I just don't think you're going to see Jameis Winston out there flinging the ball a billion times a game like we did last year in the games that he did play. And I think you're trying to get some more like responsibility out of him as a quarterback.
I just don't know if that's possible for Jameis Winston.
I mean, that's certainly a case to be made that he just says, screw you. Similar to Cam Newton, stop running. He just does his thing.
Well, what do we do with Cam then? Because Cam's hurt. Is he going to be fine?
Cam actually, so he got 0 touchdowns in the first game. And then he went on a stretch where every single game until he got hurt had 2+ touchdowns. And I'm not saying throw out game 1. I'm not saying throw out the fact that he got hurt. I'm just saying you take week 2 until he get hurt. He was on Patrick Mahomes' heel, like right behind him in points per game. That's the upside of Cam Newton. That's why I have so much of him. But I have also, every time I've drafted Cam Newton, because I'm getting him in the 10th, 11th round, I have never left the draft without a backup plan, often being Kyler Murray, funny enough. But the thing is you need a backup plan because Cam Newton, to say he plays 16 games, I think is a fool's errand this year. And you look at the way he plays, the fact that he still continues to run, the shots that he takes as a quarterback, the upside is clear. The upside is 1, 2, 3 quarterback wise on a points per game basis. The downside is he's going to miss 3, 4, 5 games.
Okay, so Wilson, Breeze, Newton, Winston, Ryan, Roethlisberger is who I have as part of this tier 3 right now. I'm just thinking about merging tier 3 and tier 4 together and throw in the Murray, the Wentz, the Josh Allen, the Prescotts, the Trubisky's, because not that I dislike any of these guys. Obviously, I like them. I have them ranked where I have them ranked, but I don't feel good about drafting any of these guys. I mean, Winston might actually be my favorite of them.
And, that's a fair thing to say, but that's why I was saying if I get to tier 3 as my first quarterback, like tier 2, now you've changed it up. So,
tier 2 is just Baker Mayfield. So this is all tier 3.
So tier 3 now. So the tier 3 that we've now created. If I have tier 3, I'm still probably okay leaving my draft with one, unless it's Cam Newton. If I leave the draft with just Drew Brees or just Ben Roethlisberger,
I'm sorry, Homestar Runner. Is that Ben Roethlisberger?
Yeah, that was Roethlisberger. Yeah, I could chase that wascally wabbit and Roethlisberger. The fact is, if I have one of those that's not Cam Newton, I'm not drafting a second quarterback unless just the board, depending on the size of the league. It's always dependent, but I'm not looking to. I'm fine with starting Ben Roethlisberger every single week, as I said.
Should Jared Goff be a part of this tier? Because I'm thinking maybe at the end.
No.
Because two things. Straight up no. Okay, Goff or Rivers?
Rivers.
Goff or Brady?
Oh, Goff.
Goff or Lamar Jackson?
Goff. Barely. I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan.
Goff or Kirk Cousins?
I don't want either of them.
All right. Goff or Sam Darnold?
Again, That's you know what? I'd go for Sam Darnold just because of now you're talking about your Josh Allen argument. I'll just go for the ceiling.
All right.
Sam Darnold, in my opinion, has a higher ceiling, and people are going to lose their mind right now. They're going to lose their mind after what I just said. But the problem is with Goff. Here's why: it's because I was one of the people who was very questionable, saying I'll admittedly said after Jared Goff's rookie season, I don't know if he'll ever be anything in the NFL. The thing is, if you look at what McVay did, so I'm going to draw a comparison real quick. When Michael Thomas got drafted by the Saints, I said this is one of the best fits of team to need to talent ratio like I've ever seen in my life. Like he fits that slot flanker role that they just lost to Marquise Colston. This is an amazing fit. Where I compare that to this situation is I think that Sean McVay, this offense and the talent around Jared Goff got the most possible out of Jared Goff. But if you look at there was two things that happened to Jared Goff last year. Two. One was the Cooper Kupp injury, but that wasn't the only one. Like that was his boy. And I love Cooper Kupp. He's got him back. However, the other thing that happened is this was something that I forget who wrote the report. Whoever find this report and give this guy credit. There's a report that defenses stopped showing their formation until the audio switched off in the helmet for Jared Goff because they knew Jared Goff was very bad at reading defenses, and he still is. So they waited and didn't really break the huddle. As soon as it switched off, then they got into formation, and that's when you saw Jared Goff's numbers drop off tremendously as well. So like I said, I think McVay in this offense got the most possible out of Goff. I still don't think he's that good of a quarterback.
Okay. I'm kind of on the same page with you. And for a while, system was carrying him and that offense was carrying him. And that was good enough. They still get games against what about Garoppolo? Where does Garoppolo fit into this mix?
He's in the conversation, but what do we have on Garoppolo? We didn't even get to see him.
But is he, because right here, here's how the rankings work right now. You got the top four, you got Baker by himself. And then as a part of tier 3, I got Breeze, Winston, Wilson, Cam, Roethlisberger, Ryan, Kyler Murray, Carson Wentz, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Mitch Trubisky, Sam Darnold. Don't tell Cust because I'll pretend like he's the worst quarterback in the league when Cust is on. And then Lamar Jackson as a part of that tier. Should Garoppolo be with those guys?
I think he should, but we're shooting pure ceiling and assumption. I mean, we're assuming.
But where these guys are going, like we're talking about quarterback 15, 16, 14, whatever it might be. Like that's the range that he should be in just to gamble on that he's really good like we thought he was going to be.
Right. So, like the more I've been thinking about it, you want to throw out the Tom Brady argument. Again, I think it would depend on the make it. Like, I'm in my mind thinking more super flex because I play so much of it this day. And I was thinking like the 17 points for my second quarterback, whatever. One quarterback and you're drafting, you drafted Matt Ryan and now you're like, I'm not going to pair Tom Brady with Matt Ryan to your argument. Good point. I'd take the flyer on Garoppolo. As you just said, maybe Garoppolo is really good. Maybe Garoppolo is even better than Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, but I could also see him being an absolute disaster as well. So
right.
Are there any, like this tier 4 that I have right now consists of Rivers, Cousins, Goff, and Brady? That's not a fun tier. Like that sounds like Matthew Stafford and Andy Dalton should be a part of that tier too.
Andy Dalton really should. Andy Dalton's got 2 top 10 performances to his name and a healthy AJ Green as of now. Look, that's like the boring non-running vet tier.
Yeah, I'll throw Dalton into that tier. I'll throw Carr and Stafford into that tier, and that leaves
Carr and Stafford. Nah.
All right, so I'll move them down. Then that leaves us with like Mariota, Foles, Flacco, Eli, Rosen, Haskins, maybe Case Keenum. I don't know. Like, do we want any of these guys? No.
You forgot you got for Fitzpatrick too.
Is Fitzpatrick going to start, or is Rosen going to start?
I actually have a dollar bet with my Sports Unsealed show over the Athletic that I think Josh Rosen's the week 1 starter because why you might as well, even if he's a complete bust. And you threw away the draft pick. But that's why I was so shrewd of the Dolphins because the Saints traded up and it was basically cost them nothing to find out if Josh Rosen is anything. Why wouldn't you start a week 1 to find out? What are you waiting for? Like, you could hit a gold mine here and be like, oh my God, everything everybody positively was saying about Josh Rosen last year is true. This is a franchise quarterback. He's a top 15, top 10 quarterback in the league. On the flip side, you find out he's not. And you continue your tanking right out of the gate, and you finish 2-14 and draft Tua.
Yeah,
I just don't like you just said.
I get that reasoning. That makes a lot of sense. But like, I don't think you can like rank Fitzpatrick highly or rank Josh Rosen highly. They're both going to be in this very last tier.
No. I was answering your question about Fitzpatrick starting.
All right.
To be honest with you, you said Eli Manning. There's even in a super flex. I think there's a certain possibility where Eli Manning is maybe not even under center week 1.
Yeah, how about Joe Flacco or Nick Foles?
I think super flex only. I mean, really, Joe
Right.
Flacco should start for the majority of the season, but
all right, so I'll go that. I'll throw Dalton into that tier with the aging vets of like Rivers and Cousins and Goff and Brady. So I'll go Dalton, Rivers, Cousins, Goff, Brady. I think I'll have it. Then it'll drop into the next tier of Stafford and Carr and Foles. Actually, I'll move Foles. What about Mariota? Any positive vibes? Like, are we to the point where now everyone doesn't believe in him? Like, through the course of the past few years, it's like no one really believes in Mariota. But then there's that like groundswell being like, well, actually, this is the year where Mariota is going to be awesome. And then now, like, there's no one saying that anymore.
Oh, this is also the year Devontae Parker is finally going to do something too, right?
Yeah. So it's every year.
Yeah, like Mariota, we know his upside. Like it's the rushing, and if he has any type of passing, like Mariota. Be honest with you, right now, let's talk about it. Mariota, Josh Allen, what's the difference?
I think that you're in an offense that actually allows Josh Allen to run way more often than.
Oh no, I was actually going to make the positive art. I was going to say Josh Allen actually runs more. That's the difference.
Yeah, he runs more, and he runs more, and he has a way bigger arm.
Yeah, and I would say, but if you told me between the two pass options wise, talent around them, I would give the edge with Corey Davis, AJ Brown now into the mix, and they signed Adam Humphries. So, and you still have Tywan Taylor and other pieces. Delaney Walker's coming back healthy. So, passing game wise, weapon wise, I would give the Titans the edge. But honestly, like I threw that out there because more so the passing side of things, it was like Mariota at this point from what we've seen from him. As much as I hate Josh Allen, is apparently through this show, because everybody's going to now say I completely hate Josh Allen.
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It does sound like you do hate Josh Allen. Paul behind the camera, who's a Bills fan, completely agrees.
Obviously. Is Mariota a better passer than Josh Allen?
No,
I mean, honestly, question mark.
They might be the same, except for Josh Allen has twice the arm.
And that's fair. I don't think Mariota is the quarterback for the Titans next year.
Do you think that Tannehill might replace him at some point this year?
If it happened, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's going to remain down on this tier. So I go Foles, Stafford, Carr, Mariota, Flacco. I mean, the Broncos throw a ton.
Do you have a tier of possibly replaced quarterbacks? I mean, because that should be that should be like Eli Manning, obviously Marcus Mariota. Who else do we have here? We talked about it. Like you could throw just whoever Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean,
Flacco should be there.
Yeah, Flacco. So it's Carr, Mariota, Flacco, Manning, Rosen. And then it has like Haskins, Keenum, Fitzpatrick, Tannehill, Daniel Jones, and Drew Lock.
Actually, I would put Haskins a lot higher.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Because he's an amazing quarterback throwing wise. He's not going to run. I mean, the truth is he's not going to run. And I said, I said higher. And I said, look, hold on. Don't go crazy. I only have him in I think 21, somewhere around there. But the truth is, as a passer, Haskins is an exceptionally good quarterback. Go back. For people that haven't, go watch some Ohio State games. I know I said the same thing on the rookie show with you, but go watch some of those games. Watch the offense before and after Haskins took over. He's not running. He's going to get 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns. Probably they need to be on the 1 or the 2 yard line, and something needs to break down, or maybe they even call a QB sneak just because of his size. That's really all that's going to happen. He's going to probably run for maybe 60 yards on the season. But if you look at this offense, and I know we're still waiting for Josh Doxson, but Josh Doxson, Paul Richardson, however many games Jordan Reed plays. But Terry McLaurin, who I kept telling you about on the rookie show, they drafted his buddy right out of college. If Haskins came out this year, threw for near 4,000 yards and 25, 26 touchdowns, would not shock me at all. That's probably going to be around his projections.
I find that hard to believe.
I think the talent
it's like you're saying that Dwayne Haskins is better than Josh Allen, which he's not.
As a passer?
As anything. No. I mean, there's a reason Josh Allen went higher in the draft, pal.
No. Dwayne Haskins passing is here. Josh Allen is off screen.
Yeah, but as we relate this to fantasy, maybe you're right. Maybe Dwayne Haskins is going to be a better real life quarterback. I just don't see where the fantasy upside comes in.
I didn't put him there with Josh Allen.
It sounds like you've said Josh Allen is the worst. Dwayne Haskins is in consideration as a first round pick. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Josh Allen is Mark Ingram. And Dwayne Haskins is Alvin Kamara.
Wow. That is ridiculous. Yeah, you might want to flip those if you want to win in fantasy this year. Anything else we should mention about quarterbacks? I think we covered most of them. We didn't talk about Breeze, but I ranked him at number 6. He's gonna be fine.
I have him at 8.
He's gonna be
I
good.
still think that
He's good.
I think from what we saw from, to be honest with you, he's the rich man's Tom Brady at this point. I don't think they're going to pass that much more this year.
I agree, and he was still a top 10 quarterback last year. Like their offense is so good, and the defenses in their division are so bad, and they get up by a ton because they pass that way, and they use Kamara so much out of the backfield as a receiving threat that he's going to get his.
Yeah, and what did he throw? Like, did he even hit 4,000 yards last year?
That I don't know. Let's bring up the board so I can look at it. 3,992 yards.
I see it. Yeah, barely missed it.
Yeah, like the 4 rushing touchdowns might come back to earth, especially that one he had to force overtime against Atlanta, I think in week 2 or week 3. But 30 touchdowns, 4,000 yards, maybe a bit more. I mean,
well, I
guess there is the big thing that like Jared Cook's on the team now, so that accounts for like 8 drop touchdowns. So we'll see if he can recoup those.
Jared Cook is going to go. Oh, I can't wait to talk on the tight end show. Well, I was going to say Drew Brees only played 15 games too, which doesn't matter for fantasy because the 16th game is week 17. So we didn't care about that. So you got to remember that that's part of it too, is why he didn't get 4,000 yards. And even with the rushing touchdowns, you got to factor in the extra game.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be good. He leads off my tier 3. If you want to check out all my rankings, check out dkplaybook.com in the description of this video. You can find the running back ranking show along with the running back rankings. They're also up on dkplaybook.com. The rookie rankings will have more fantasy football coverage coming at you over the next month or so. Actually, the next like 5 months or so. But Jake Ciely, tell everyone what you got going on at The Athletic, and don't be afraid to pimp the podcast because it's good.
It is good. I actually just had Chris Harris this past week on the All in Sports podcast talking about second-year players and stuff, a lot of the quarterbacks as well. And then Sports Unsealed over at The Athletic. And the draft kit is coming out, depending on when you're watching this.
Well, this isn't going to be, I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to be released tomorrow. It's going to be released like sometime next week.
But yeah, I don't know when they're watching it. So what I was going to say is if you're looking for the draft kit, the number 17 sounds like a number that you might want to pay attention to. But if you go to theathletic.com/all-in-sports, that's the 30 number. You get 30% off, so you don't have to pay a full price if you want to go get the draft kit and all that type of stuff.
That sounds pretty good. You may have sold me on The Athletic, so we'll have to go check this out. But
not even for me. You get to go read Ken Rosenthal and Jay Glazer and all those guys, and then you get my stuff.
Don't care about that. I want to read Jake Ciely. That's it. And Chris Meaney.
Nobody says that. Yes, Chris Meaney. There you go. There's the real appeal.
And I just want to comment on Nando's columns. Be like, baseball's stupid, Nando, and then he'll like freak out.
No. Go look at Nando's. You can't just leave a 1-sentence comment on Nando's columns. You got to write like a 3-paragraph novel if you're going to comment on Nando's.
That sounds like a lot of effort to be wasted by people.
Go check out his Bryce Harper column just for fun. Just go check it out.
Are people triggered by it?
Oh, it is. It is the most triggered comment section. And I thought I triggered people for the comments. It is the most triggered comment section I have ever seen in my life. I mean, paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of people losing their mind.
Wow, sounds like you need to get on 4chan, Jake, because those people are triggered. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me on Twitter at the PME. Subscribe to my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme. You can check out all the videos, all the podcasts. Up there is a running stream. Hopefully, by the time you watch this, we're back up on YouTube, but who knows? Maybe not, but Facebook is where you'll be able to find anything. And if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks, there are 3 ways to do this. Number 1, like the video. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. Rank your top 5 quarterbacks for the upcoming season. Number 2, follow me on Instagram at the PME. Like one of the quarterback videos or photos that go up, and then leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section as a reply. If you say something nice about me, then maybe that gives you an extra weight in the draw for the 20 DK bucks. Then subscribe, rate, and review 5 stars, DraftKings handle, something nice about the show, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, TuneIn, doesn't matter where it is. Do that for the audio podcast, and boom, you're in a draw for 20 DK bucks as well. I want to thank Jake for being on the line. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank me for being here. It's a struggle sometimes. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!